Hey crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestamies.com, and today we are talking about markers. Not just any markers, but the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. And they're water-based, but they act a little differently than most water-based markers. So I'm going to show you exactly why they're different and how you can use them in your crafting. Let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look here. Now this Clean Color Real Brush set has 24 colors in it, and just a little heads up, when I got this package, each one was individually shrink wrapped. But the good news is that you can actually just kind of give it a twist and then pull it off. The cap will come off very easily, and then you just strip off that cellophane. So it looks like here on the brush, each one has the name written right on it. So each one also has a clear cap. There is no like little clip or anything to clip it onto, but it's a nice clear cap so you can see what color it is. And here you see that even the tip and the brush are the same color. But if you store them this way, you can see the color on both ends, which is kind of nice. Now, just a little thing about this brush tip, it looks like a traditional marker nib, but really, can you see how flexible it is? As I just kind of touch it with my finger, how easily it bends. So really, this is a fine brush that you're getting instead of a marker nib, which means it's very expressive and will respond to the touch. If you push down harder, you're gonna get a thicker line, and a lighter line will give you a really thin one. But I'll show you on paper too, I promise. So now I'm just gonna write on this piece of cardstock. This is heavy cardstock, and it's a smooth texture. So you'll see that I can kind of just almost skate over the top and color over the top, and it brings out the pattern of the paper underneath, which is kind of fun. It makes me feel like I want to experiment with maybe some embossed paper. But you can also go a little bit slower and look at those thin little teeny deliberate lines that I can get, because as I mentioned, this really is a very fine brush. You can also kind of play around and puddle the ink or the paint. Well, it's an ink because it's water-based, and it puddles right off to the side. All right, let's get a nice close look of the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers in action. That is such a mouthful. So first of all, it does have a fairly transparent color. So if you put it down on a light color paper, it's gonna look the best. If you put it on a darker color paper, say for example, this black cardstock, you're not going to get any color at all. So these are not pigment based, they are definitely like a water-based dye. Now, that being said, if you go over them a couple times, you can kind of build up the layers of color. You should note that this is glossy cardstock, and I just want to show you that you can use it on glossy. I'll give this a minute and it'll dry up. But let's take a look at this here. So what I've got is I just tried to blend this out from a darker color to a lighter color by hand, and this is what I got. I did one coat of the blue here, I did 2 layers of the blue here, and 3 here. So as you can see, just by going over the same area, you can build up a depth of color, which is kind of nice. Now, the other thing I did, and you'll see in this example, and I'll do this for you in real time, is I actually mixed it with water and then blended it out to get this watercolor effect. You see how it looks a little bit like watercolor here? And then also I got it to blend out. So let me show you. I'm working on this silicone mat so that the ink won't dry or soak in. And that's, I think, how this works. This is one of those soaky-any things. So here I'm just scribbling some green down, which of course it looks weird because it's on pink, but you get the idea. And now I'm going to take some water and I'm going to pick that up, and then I'm going to go right on top. So you see how I can kind of dilute that out a little bit? Or I can take a little bit of water on the tip and get some puddling and some darker colors going. Another cool trick you can do is actually blending by using 2 different markers. And what I'm going to do is take the dark color, which is the green, and I'm going to kiss the tips together, just like this for a little bit, and let the green transfer via gravity into the nib. You can see how the nib now looks green, even though it's the yellow marker. And I'm just going to kind of start working it back and forth and notice how I can get this fun ombre color effect. Isn't that cool? And that way you can just kind of use some of the different colors that you have and blend them, because as I'm going to show you in this next example, they don't blend as nicely on the paper. Once you put them down on the paper, they soak in and they become almost permanent. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how they blend once you put them on paper. So in this first example, I created the blocks and then I colored in orange and yellow, and I tried to use some water to blend them back and forth. And you can see right along here, there's a little bit of bleeding that happened, but not a lot. So then in the second one, again, I colored in orange and yellow and then used water to try and blend them back and forth. And while it moved, it's not a real even or pretty blend. So then in this example, I colored the orange just in that inside square and then used a lot of water to try and get it to bleed out. And you can see that there's like an inner ring of bleeding and then just like a little wash. But the point is that once these go into paper, they soak down into the surface and become pretty grabby, pretty dyed. So any blending that you want to do, I highly recommend you do it on a piece of plastic. And you can take your packaging and just cut off part of this clamshell and mix right in here, because they are dye based. It means that if you put them on a slick surface like this, it will never really dry, or it will dry, but then you can lift it back up. Once you add water to it or you pick it up, then it soaks in and it will become more or less permanent after that. So one other thing I wanted to show you, I actually put as much material down as I could. I kept just rubbing it back and forth to see if I could get it to soak through. And the answer is very, very, very barely. So like when you're working with an alcohol marker, you find that it soaks through really easy. With this water-based dye marker, not so much. And I really had to work to get the color to pill. So for this reason, I kind of like using these to color in stamped images. I find that the fine point of the brush tip lets me do very, very, very teeny tiny areas, like in this little crab, because it doesn't bleed very much. I mean, it doesn't bleed once you put it down on paper. You can get those nice little areas, and the capillary action of the paper won't actually make it bleed out for you. As far as creating color variations, I do recommend that, handy dandy tip of kissing the bristles together to get a little bit of color variation, or blending them together on a surface, because that's how you're going to get, some of that color blending that you might want to do. I'm just going to pick that up with a little more water and make a little wash. See? Nice. But if I go back over, say, this area, I can get it to lift a little bit, but you're not going to get that to blend back out and really move on the surface of the paper for you. Lastly, I want to show you a few things that I made using the Kuretake / Zig Clean Brush Real markers. And first, this is a card I made, and I used the markers to color my clear acrylic stamps before I stamped them. So actually, all of these are the Zig markers, and you just color right on the stamp and it works great. No problem with that. One thing I did try was using like the those little air blowers to make the little spatters. It did not work for this. I actually had to use a different marker to make the spatters. Those brushes just don't disperse the ink the way like a felt nibbed marker would. So just so you know, it's not so great for that. Next, I made this little card here, this little froggy guy, and I kind of watercolored him. Again, I used the technique where I put the darker color down on the mat and then I picked it up with a lighter marker and then kind of blended it together with a little bit of water on the nib to kind of create the watercolor effect. I like the way he turned out. I think he's really super vibrant, and it's just like watercoloring. I use these like watercolors but in the marker, which makes it really easy to control and really fun to paint with. And then the last thing I'll show you here, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm using this kind of orchid, and again, picked up a little bit of water right on the nib, and then colored with it, and you get this kind of watercolory, pretty effect. So I haven't finished that one yet, but I really enjoy them. And again, if you think of them as watercolors in a pen, and once you put them down, they stay put. They don't blend around. I think that is the best way that you can think of to use these markers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful and or informative. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up because that really does help out our channel. Also, we would love it if you would like and or subscribe by clicking this box over here so that you can be kept up to date with all the new product reviews, tutorials, and crafting news that I can muster. Thank you so much for watching again and have a crafty day.